And what also scares me is that we discussed this a little bit personally, but we become aware of it and we care about it. And then all of a sudden something else happens. And then we care about that and aware of it. And we forget about everything else that happened in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And so when I was looking up a week ago, like what happened in the summer of 2022, the amount of things that I forgot about or that were the center of the news and then were completely like forgotten about is insane. And I feel like we just
Mm-hmm.
like as people have trouble or we can't think about all the bad things that are going on because we would just be like so depressed all the time. But
Yeah.
there's also privilege in being able to forget some of the issues
Mm-hmm.
that are going on. Like people are living these everyday experiences, but some of us have, like, I have the privilege of forgetting that this major news story broke 2 months ago. So
Yeah.
you have to balance the idea of like, you want to be able to like continue throughout your day, be able to sit at work and like not worry about everything. But also you have to remember there's privilege in being able to forget some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, and I would attribute that to the media and how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's information overload. Social media is saturated with infographics, which I love. It's fine. I like them. Okay? I like them. But sometimes, if you have all of this, it like on your screen and you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, like you just spiral.
Doom
And
scrolling.
yeah, and it's actually I don't know much about this topic, so I will not say much, but I do know that some people are doing some research on how social media and the algorithm and how all of it actually changes the way that we think. Like it
Mm-hmm.
changes the way that our brain works, and
Mm-hmm.
how it actually disarms us in a way. It takes away some of the power or
Mm-hmm.
energy that we have. It also disconnects us from each other,
Right.
where
Mm-hmm.
we need to come together. And I don't just mean in the whole like it's okay what you believe, let's all come together. No. I mean more in the physical sense. like
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
actually serving our communities and being
Right.
feeling like we know each other,
Mm-hmm.
because that's needed for
Yeah.
to address these changes or these issues and to create social change. So, anyways, I know that we will be talking about media more in another episode,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very excited for that episode. We won't say much anymore, well, but yes, the media definitely it's going back to the power and money.
Right.
All of
Right.
that is connected. The media is that. So,
Yeah. The
um,
media is like one of my research topics because I find it so fascinating. But that reminds me
mhm,
of a conversation we had in chapter one in our, I think it was our intellectual activism episode where we talked
mhm.
about like the false power we get at like tweeting at the president. Like, is
Yes.
that actually going to make a difference? Like, if we spend the amount of time like hate tweeting at politicians instead of like, and we turn that instead into like meeting with people and discussing and organizing, like, there
Mhm.
could be a big difference in how things are moving forward.
Exactly. Yeah, and I guess just going into the issues that I have been paying attention to the most, and doom scrolling about. Well, the war on education, as we again plugging one of our previous episodes, which was the intellectual activism one, we call it the war on education, and basically that's all the legislation that has been passed regarding like limits on education. So like critical race theory, which is actually not being taught in public schools, but that's what is being used as a guise to actually talk about race and real history. But anyway, um, in Florida here, the Stop Woke Act is one of the laws that takes on that, and anti-trans legislation, anti-LGBTQ plus sex education. So that's what we've called the Don't Say Gay bill or law now. um, so yeah, so those are all of the things that have contributed to this war, what we call the war on education. And For me, obviously, there's two things. So I am an academic, as we know, in case you didn't know. I'm an academic, and I want to continue in academia. That's what I like. That's I know that I am the place where I need to be. And it's just really frustrating that there's this attack on us, on educators, not just in like college level, but all the way through like K through 12. And it's the people that are behind this attack are the same people that are, you know, what the issues that you've mentioned, like Roe v. Wade, gun control, like all of these things are connected. And specifically, even though we've already established that the whole system is contributing to this, there is a very clear group of people that are imposing these laws and fighting for this, or fighting against, or in this battle against classrooms and teachers and books and knowledge. And so my research interests are predominantly in Christian nationalism, and that does come from my experience, as I mentioned before, in a conservative Christian community. And I witnessed a lot of the rhetoric or the ideas that are behind Christian nationalism. And to define that for the listeners, so Christian nationalism, putting it simply, is the belief that the U.S. is a Christian nation and that it should enforce Christian, specifically conservative Christian values through the law. And so the people, you don't need to be a Christian to adhere to this or to support this. Many Republicans, it's specifically Republicans who are, spoiler alert, it's specifically Republicans who are adhering or adopting this idea, but really many of them are not actually practicing Christians or religious even. It's really just a tool at this point. It's just a way to get people that really believe in this, get them on their side. And it's not that difficult when it's conservatism. Like, it's preserving the status quo and preserving basically going back to a previous great nation that has never existed, but it's a myth that is real to them. So in my research with Christian nationalism, this war on education becomes really relevant because it's about control, it's about power, it's about them taking over the only spaces in which you can question anything. So like, obviously academia, schools, which I find ironic, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole now, but I will just say I just find it ironic because they are the same people that created private schools when schools were being integrated, so they didn't want to be integrated, so they made, you know, themselves private schools under, you know, religious institution. You can't control them with the state because it's religion, it's church, separation of church and state. And now here we are, they are trying to control what's being taught in schools and universities, based on a very clear set of values, which are theirs only. And so that's what we call authoritarianism, pretty much. And yeah, so it really, that just comes out of what you mentioned before, like the people that have previously been privileged or continue to be privileged, but people that have previously not realized how the system didn't work, now they're realizing that it doesn't work for them either in certain ways.
Right.
But anyways, there's this reaction that comes out of that uncertainty and that fear. And obviously social change, actually, that's like the major driving force. It's not even that they feel like the state is hurting them, but it's that the state is forsaking them for other groups that they've always forsaken.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I like the silver lining to it in my eye, if there were to be one, is the fact that like the people who created these bills are scared. Like they're scared that we are making progress and they don't want that to happen. So I think
Mhm.
it only goes to show that the work that activists have been doing for many years is working because they're frightened and they don't want it to see it progress any further. And so while it's extremely frustrating and it's scary because we both want to be in academia, it's just like it's because activists for a long time have done such a good job making sure that there is
Yep.
social progress. But you know,
Mhm.
now that they see it, it's kind of like the pendulum swinging, which always happens is once
Mhm.
the pendulum is moving this way, some force has to happen to move it back the other way. And so that's what
Yes.
we're seeing again. And it goes back and forth over the course of history. And
Mhm.
so it's just they're scared of equality and they're scared of people. They're scared of losing their power. And so they feel like they must force it onto us. And so that's an
Mhm.
interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, and well, power and progress, both things. So we have misconceptions about both. Like we think, oh, they want to take power.
Mm-hmm.
No, they've been in power. They want to
Mm-hmm.
keep their power as
Right.
soon as they're challenged in any way. So
Mm-hmm.
they're actually, we might question like, so how did they get up there? That's weird. um, why don't we get up? Like, shouldn't it be easy for us to get empowered too? And it's like, no, it's easy for them because literally they built the system.
They've
So
always had it.
yeah, they've always had power. So obviously it takes little effort on their
Mm-hmm.
part
Mm-hmm.
to take that power and use it and basically double down. We're talking about doubling down. And
Mm-hmm.
also with progress, we think that progress is linear. That, oh, just with the passage of time, things will
Mm-hmm.
get better and we'll be
Right.
a better society, whatever that means. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's also not how it works. Like you said,
Right.
it's almost, yeah, it's a pendulum. That's the best. Yeah, that's the best. I couldn't come up with a better analogy. So yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's also when it comes down to us creating change. I think we really need to understand that because sometimes we think, oh, if we just vote the right way, if we
Mm-hmm.
just put the right person in power, if we
Mm-hmm.
just do this one thing, if we just get this law passed, everything is reversible. Like
Right.
everything is reversible. And so we need to constantly be engaged in
Mm-hmm.
not just voting for this one issue or voting for
Mm-hmm.
this one law or putting this one person in power. It's
Mm-hmm.
about creating communities of resistance to
Right.
continue to push back when the
Mm-hmm.
pendulum swings
Mm-hmm.
back. And that's
Right.
always existed. So we,
Mm-hmm.
that can sound pessimistic, but I think, and Dr. Cox, I believe, mentioned it in the previous episode that we did with him about critical race theory. Like just like systems of oppression have always existed throughout history, systems of resistance have always, and systems, people have
Mm-hmm.
always been able to resist. And yeah, so we can find hope, some comfort in that. But we
Right.
need to stay engaged, is my point.
Yeah.